Hi, I'm Tracy Jacobs, and I'm the director of the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Towson University. I want to welcome you today to our Osher Preview Fall classes. Today, we have many of our instructors here to tell you about their fall courses, and that's going to happen in just a few seconds. First, if you want to take a look at the Osher Fall Catalog, you can do so online by going to www.towson.edu/Osher, and then you'll just click on the Fall Catalog PDF. Registration will be opening at midnight on Tuesday, August 9th. So we do encourage you to register as soon as possible, though. Please follow the online registration instructions that we have online on the website, and we'll email them to everybody. Follow those carefully so you can make sure that you completed your registration. Sometimes people are not completing their registrations because one of the features is you get a confirmation before you pay. So you're not really done until after you've paid. So make sure you've paid and then you're complete. If you have any questions about registration or otherwise, please email us at osher@towson.edu. That is the best way to reach us, osher@towson.edu, and we'll respond as soon as we can. We will accept mailed-in registrations, so if you'd like to mail in your registration, you can print off the registration form from the online catalog and mail it in. But please, please, please also email us, osher@towson.edu, to let us know that you've mailed in a registration with your payment, and that way we can keep an eye out for it. If you see that a class has a wait list, this is really important. Please add your name to the wait list if you want to be in that class, because room could open up. It's often it often does. So please just add your name to that wait list. I want to tell you a little bit about our schedule. It's very much like it was last semester. So we'll have online classes and in-person classes. Online classes are going to meet on Mondays and Fridays. They will be recorded with maybe one exception. It will be noted in the catalog. So make sure you look for that. We know that you want to have in-person classes as well. So Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are our in-person classes, and those will not be recorded. So that's important. And I guess that's about it. I want to let you hear from the instructors. I want to thank you very much for joining us today and for your continued participation and support. I'm really honored to be able to work with such a great group of lifelong learners and instructors. And so thank you so much. Now you can just kind of sit back, relax, enjoy, and listen to our instructors as they talk about their fall courses. Thank you.
Welcome to Musica Britannica, a 4-week exploration of English music from the early Renaissance to the 18th century, and the architectural spaces which once echoed with its strains. From the 3 C's, church, court, and college, you will hear music for an Elizabethan wedding masque. You will see Inigo Jones' banqueting hall in London, other places where masques were staged. You will hear one of Henry Purcell's anthems for the Chapel Royal and a coronation anthem by Handel, and learn about the finely balanced architecture of a typical parish church and how it changed. Listen to popular songs for Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens and hear chamber music from a fashionable concert in Hanover Square by Bach's younger son. We will start with some basic elements of architecture, sacred and secular, and then look at some of the sources of English polyphony up through the Renaissance, Restoration, and 18th century. The class will also read relevant period documents, including poetry, song texts, diaries, and correspondence.
Hi, my name is Emmanuel Abramowitz, and I've been invited to teach a course called Rhythm and Juice, Stories of Jazz, Blues, Rock, and Popular Culture. It all starts with the huge migrations from Europe and within America in the 19th and the early years of the 20th century. and the musical connection between minorities, the emergence of great names in jazz through the decades, the sounds of today. In jazz, blues, a well-known winner of the Nobel Prize, many of the main rock and pop stars, the birth of protest songs, the venues, the performers, the innovators, the best producers in the business, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the record labels, and many anecdotes from my own experience with great artists. So don't miss it, and see you soon online.
Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Jones, just back from seeing 7 plays in 3 days at Canada's Shaw Festival. We'll only be talking about 4 plays, 1 a week, in this latest edition of a course that has become my favorite activity, meeting with you and sharing new discoveries about great dramas. Newcomers, please know that you don't have to have taken any of the other courses that I've taught to take this one, but those of you who have will know that it's a mix of me talking and, way more important, scenes from good productions of each play online, along with some guest appearances by some of Baltimore and Washington's finest acting talent, along with your comments and observations. I send out a list of the plays in advance, where to see them and read them, but you don't have to. You can come in totally armed with questions and comments, or you can come in as a blank slate. Either way, I hope you'll enjoy exploring these 4 plays that each caused a sensation when they first appeared. We'll start with a delightful comedy entitled La Ronde by Arthur Schnitzler, and then move to Chekhov's serio-comic Seagull, and then get to know the scandalous Mrs. Warren's Profession by Shaw, and we'll finish up with Pirandello's 6 Characters in Search of an Author. I hope to see you beginning Wednesday, October 17th. Until then, have a great summer. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Come to Powerful Words, the Art of Maracukiot. In this class, we will talk about the visual arts and related oral traditions of the Canadian Arctic Inuit, as presented by the artist Maracukiot. Inuit people are proud of their ability to survive and thrive in their harsh and beloved Arctic landscape. They have always celebrated this by creating artworks and performances that sustain values, practices, beliefs, and indigenous knowledge. Maracukiot will be our metaphorical guide. She was one of a generation of 20th century artists who led their families in the transition from life on the tundra to a life in the permanent towns that dot the Arctic. Kukiot is my focal subject of an exhibition in progress. Her family territory was near modern-day Baker Lake on the northwest coast of Hudson Bay, and her family settled there in the 1950s. Earning a cash living in small rural towns is challenging, and one strategy was to make art using the skills of nomadic daily life. Sewing parkas translated to narrative wall hangings, carving stone, bone, and ivory tools and amulets translated to narrative figures of community life, wildlife, and spiritual forces. Inuit artists also learned the new arts of drawing and printing. These efforts coalesced into a Canadian national arts cooperative system connected to the urban commercial galleries. Kukiot herself left a legacy of works on paper that described Inuit lives as hunters and offer meditations on shifting clouds and water. As the granddaughter of a shaman, Kukiot is known for her ability to depict the challenges of converting from indigenous religion to Christianity. Literate in Inuktitut, Kukiot clarified many works on paper with powerful words. Come join the class, and thank you for listening.
Photography of war and conflict. There had been conflict and war photographers before him. Roger Fenton is considered the first war photographer. He went to the Crimea in the 1850s to document the British war there. Due to the technology of the time, the photographic process was extremely slow. It took up to a minute to make a picture. His images are quite benign. Matthew Brady and others fully documented the American Civil War and were only slightly better able to show the horrors. As the technology of warfare progressed, so did that of photography. World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and other conflicts were heavily photographed. Images of fighting and action and dead were no longer impossible to make. Robert Capa's images in Spain and on Omaha Beach are iconic, as are David Duncan and Larry Burroughs' images from Vietnam. This, part 4 of the course, will present photography and photographers of war and conflict from the Vietnam era through to today, including Ukraine. You don't have to have taken the first 3 classes. It's a standalone class. We'll look at all the different photographers at that time. We'll look at how the genre has changed and whether these graphic images or horrific images of warfare and conflict are still effective today. Just as a warning, many of the photographs that we'll be looking at are fairly disturbing, especially the more recent ones, of course. So, but I hope you'll join me and we'll talk about photography in war and conflict. Thank you.
My name is Robin Tress, and I'll be teaching on Thursdays, 9:30, at the Loyola Graduate Center, the first Osher fall session. The name of the class is Reading, Writing, and the Pilcrow. The subject of the class is the physical materials of reading and writing throughout history. We start with Mesopotamian clay in 3000 BC, then Egyptian papyrus, medieval parchment, paper, invented according to legend by the Chinese in 105 AD. We'll talk about the various types of ink that each required and why Gutenberg had to invent an entirely new type of ink for his press in 1455. We'll look at the evolution of the press itself, from wood to cast iron to the modern steel rotary press. And let us not forget the pencil, the crayon, and that wonderful 20th century Hungarian invention, the ballpoint pen. There will be various videos interspersed throughout the lectures, and to be passed around, I have modern papyrus, parchment from 1470, and paper from 1497. For the true book lover, there will be an optional field trip to a local Baltimore library to look at books from the 15th and 16th century, and the one and only copy of the first book printed in Baltimore, 1765. So, for history, art, technology, Baltimore, it's reading, writing, and the Pilcrow.
Hello, thank you for tuning into this video. My name is Charles Fortin, and I have the pleasure and the privilege of introducing The Examined Life, Philosophical Discussions, a unique opportunity for you to share your serious thoughts in a friendly, non-judgmental environment with neighbors interested in what you have to say. Socrates, the Greek philosopher, did not waste his time thinking about trivial, inconsequential things that didn't matter. He committed himself to one goal, to first know himself, who he was as a person. Now, you already know more about yourself than anyone else. You are a treasure trove of life experiences and wisdom that we would like to know about. Philosophy cannot be taught. You will not be talked to, nor will we be sharing new knowledge in what would be a typical classroom setting. Rather, as a group, we will engage in dialogues on topics that are of interest to all of us. For Socrates, knowing oneself was not a solitary adventure. Knowing oneself requires dialogue, conversations, and discussions with others. What have I come to know about myself? My ambitions, my beliefs, my concerns, my talents, and my values. The people I care about, and others, maybe not so much. What am I committed to? What am I willing to fight for? How do I want to conduct my life? And what difference does it make? In our sessions, we will formulate philosophical questions to satisfy our curiosity, but also to deepen our understanding in transformative ways on perspectives that may change the way we look at ourselves and the world around us. As moderator, I will also provide you with some handouts on topics that some philosophers have written about. These are background readings, they are not homework.
So please join us. We look forward to learning about your views, your beliefs, and your opinions that are of interest to all of us. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Hello, my Osher friends. I'm Ed Fotheringill, and I'll be giving a course on Plato this semester. Alfred North Whitehead, a famous 20th century British philosopher, is the author of a revealing statement about the philosophy of Plato. He says, 2,500 years of Western thought is but a series of footnotes to Plato. That's quite a statement. What does it mean? It means that all philosophy since the time of Plato is either a response to or a further elaboration of what Plato said. So Plato is the first great philosopher, maybe the greatest. The distinguished professor of world literature, Harold Bloom, said the following: there are two pillars upon which Western culture is based. The first is Plato, the second is Shakespeare. Plato was born in 427 BC. He was the student of the philosopher Socrates and the teacher of Aristotle. He was the first systematic philosopher of the Western world. He established brilliant theories of metaphysics and epistemology and ethics and psychology. And in this course, we will examine the major themes and principles of Platonic philosophy. Special attention will be given to three dialogues. First, the Apology, which is a discussion about the life of Socrates. Second, the Phaedo, which is a series of reflections on death. And finally, the Symposium, which is a series of reflections on the nature of love. So if you're interested in the origins of Western philosophy, this course will inform and inspire you. And I thank you for your consideration.
And it came to pass that in those days a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that a census of the whole world had to be taken. My guess is that these words resonated with many people listening to this on an emotional level. Why? Because these words and the story they introduce have spawned the biggest religious and cultural movement in the history of the Western Hemisphere. Why? Because at the core of this cultural and religious Big Bang is an event that sparked a revolution, changed the calendar of the West, and has expanded into countless stories, carols, customs, rituals, movies, dramas, legends, songs, and poems. Legends like The Night the Animals Talked. Movies like Miracle on 34th Street and It's a Wonderful Life. Operas like Amal and the Night Visitors. Carols like Silent Night and O Come All Ye Faithful. Songs like The Little Drummer Boy and White Christmas. Poems like The Night Before Christmas. Customs like Santa Claus, nativity scenes, gift giving, the Christmas tree, lights, blinking lights, colored lights, bubble lights, strings of lights, 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 and more lights. At the heart of this phenomenon are the stories of the birth of Jesus, written in two of the four Gospels named Matthew and Luke. Where did these stories come from? And what was the intention of telling these stories by these two authors is the quest of this course called The Infancy Narratives in Matthew's and Luke's Gospels. Dipping into the work of Catholic, Protestant, and Jewish biblical scholars, we will take a trip through these four brief chapters found in the New Testament of the Bible, the first two chapters of the Gospel of Matthew and the first two chapters of the Gospel of Luke. Join us. It will change your Christmas. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kathleen, and my last name is Haj Damacha. My name sign are the finger-spelled letters KB. You may call me KB, okay? I am deaf, and I will be your ASL 1 instructor this fall, beginning September 15th on Thursdays. We will begin that day, and I am excited and looking forward to teaching the class. In the class, we will get to know each other, and then we will learn finger spelling, colors, shapes, family signs, activities, and we will have lots of fun. This fall will be my 8th year of teaching at Towson University. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. David Salzberg. I'll be teaching a course in the fall at Osher on the presidents and the Jews. I hold a master's degree from Baltimore Hebrew Institute at Towson University in Jewish Studies. I've had a long-standing interest in the intersection of American Jewish life with American history and modern American medicine. In this course, we will explore how American presidents have interacted with minority religious communities. This certainly is an important and relevant topic in our day. We will view this primarily through the lens of the evolving American Jewish community. We will begin with Colonial Times and read from the famous letter of George Washington to the Jews of Newport. We will discuss the thoughts of Madison and Jefferson on religious liberty. Presidents Lincoln and Grant will be our next focus during Civil War times. We will then jump to the 1930s and examine in depth the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt. During all these periods, we will examine closely the structure and function of the American Jewish community. Finally, we will turn to the presidency of Donald Trump. I hope you can be with us as we embark on this exciting voyage through American history. Thanks for your attention. I look forward to seeing you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Saima Sitwat. I am a writer and educator based in Baltimore. This fall, I am teaching a class on Muslims in the neighborhood for Osher Institute at Towson University. This online course will introduce its participants to Muslims next door. We will explore Islamic vocabulary from Allahu Akbar to Jihad and Sharia, and how American Muslims practice their faith in everyday lives. The goal is to create a nuanced understanding of Muslims and Islamic faith in American society. Muslims in the neighborhood will be an 8-week course conducted virtually, and I look forward to seeing many of you there. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. You can access my works and contact information on my website, saimasitwat.com. See you soon.
Hello, my name is Dr. Bob Baer, and I'm going to be teaching the Reconstruction Period, America's first civil rights movement. Now, the Reconstruction Period is one of the most relevant eras in American history, but it's also one of the least well-known and most misunderstood periods. Now, during this time, America tried to come to terms with the consequences of the abolition of slavery. The goal was to create an interracial democracy in the South that had not existed before. And they wanted to guarantee basic rights for all Americans regardless of race. Now, it was a time of great hope, but also ultimately disappointment for African Americans, as they were given rights and then they were taken away after the end of the Reconstruction period. Now, its failure would create the harsh race relations in America that we have today, especially the South. So what we're going to be looking at is the importance of Reconstruction in American history, We're going to be looking at Reconstruction during the Civil War, starting during the Civil War under Abraham Lincoln, and then the period after that known as Presidential Reconstruction under Andrew Johnson, in which it was very much a retrenchment in which they tried to stop Reconstruction going forward. After that was what's called either Congressional or the Radical Reconstruction, when Congress took over under the Radical Republicans and started to implement many of the important constitutional amendments, like abolishing slavery, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment, giving African-American men the right to vote, and other policies that would create this more democratic Southern politics. Now we're going to look at how Reconstruction occurred in the South, how Black Americans responded and how they were involved. We're going to look at then the counter-Reconstruction when the white supremacists in the South really took back the governments in the South and reinstituted a segregationist state. And then really look at the kind of the legacy and the end and the failure of Reconstruction and its legacy in our history today. So I hope you'll be able to join me.
Hi, I'm Bill Berry, and I'm excited to be able to come back this fall to teach another course on the history of the Red Scare. When we taught the movie class this spring, there was a lot of interest in the background on it. And so I'm really excited to be able to come back and do 4 weeks. We're going to talk about the Red Scare generally, particularly as it applies to Hollywood. And I encourage anybody who wants to take this course to go down to the Jewish Museum and see the exhibit that they have posted there. But the course is going to emphasize Maryland and Baltimore. And we're going to look at the House Un-American Activities Committee meetings in places like Sparrows Point, where people were brought up in 1951 and in 1957 to testify. So I know it's a lot of material to cover. It's an exciting period, and I hope that you'll take the course with us.
Hi, my name is Mark Yorick, and I'm going to be teaching a course this fall in person at Towson on the subject of capitalism, government, money, and the future of the world. This class is all about capitalism, which is a subject most of us have really strong feelings and attitudes about. Some people have very positive attitudes towards capitalism. Other people have very bad or negative attitudes towards capitalism. And I'm here to tell you that both of those attitudes is fully justified in different contexts. So what we're going to do in this course is we're going to explore all that and try to get our heads around more systematically what this thing is, what this economic system is that we call capitalism, and how have we used government over the years to try to address the things that people find particularly aggravating about capitalism, and whether or not government really does work to address some of those things. Is it effective or is it ineffective? Or do we have a patchy record on that? We're going to do this in person because we want to be able to have a lot more dialogue along the way than we were able to do online in the China course, for example. It's actually going to be 2 times a week for 4 weeks, which some of you may find a bit demanding. I would suggest to you that you think twice about whether or not you want to sign up for this course based on whether you can realistically join us for the sessions that we will hold on both days each week, because the material that we're going to be going through in this class builds from day to day. It's very dependent in terms of understanding what we've been through and where we're going next. And if you miss many court lectures, you're going to have a much more difficult time keeping up with where we are and why we're talking about these things the way that we are. So anyway, I hope this all sounds interesting to you. I'm looking forward to seeing many of you there this fall and dialoguing with you about what I think of as one of the most fascinating and important subjects that we could possibly talk about. See you this fall.
Hello, my name is Greg Pepsler, and I would like to talk to you about the course First War of Physics. Between 1939 and 1945, our world experienced the biggest armed struggle in its history. known as World War II. Millions of lives were lost. Even more people lost their families, homes, livelihoods. One of the fronts of this war was a struggle for technological superiority of weapons of war. This cannot be illustrated better than the race for building atomic bombs. This race constituted its own war within war. I call this war First War of Physics. Many of you heard of the American project of building first atomic bombs, known as Manhattan Project. Much less is known about similar efforts in Great Britain, Nazi Germany, and Soviet Russia. This course aims to shed light on all these efforts and try to explain why American, British, and Russian efforts succeeded, while German project failed. This story is far from being a dry academic subject. First of all, this is primarily a story of remarkable personalities, most of them brilliant scientists facing hard moral choices, friends growing into enemies. There were people who risked their lives for high ideals, and there were people who betrayed trust granted to them. Some people belong to both of these categories. This is a story of the scientific triumph. I would like to show you how obscure experiments made in a few labs led to the creation of weapons of colossal power. This is also a story of wars of secret services. Many spying and sabotage operations of all opposing sides are real-life thrillers. I believe all of you will enjoy learning this subject and hope to see you soon.
Hello, everybody. My name is Guillermo Worley, and I will be teaching in the fall a 4-week class, which I believe is called Technology in Society, or Technology Innovations, or Technology and Society. And the reason I'm not certain about the title is because I struggled over the several years that I've been teaching this class to come up with the right title that really explains what I would be talking about. But most likely it has the word technology in it as a title. But regardless of what it's called, it's going to be 4 weeks, and I will be dedicating one class to talk about artificial intelligence, definitions, what it is, its social implications, some of the ethical issues surrounding artificial intelligence and applications. And then we will dedicate another class to autonomous vehicles, or so-called self-driving cars. Again, what they are, a little bit of how they work, and what many issues surrounding the ethics and safety of all of that technology. And then we will dedicate one more class to drones with similar concerns, their classification, what they are, how they work, some interesting applications in that case, that perhaps that you haven't thought about it, and again, some of the challenges that they pose. And the very last class is the one that I'm still shaping around, so I can't tell you definitively what it will be. I kind of like to tie together how all these technologies that we discussed affect our lives, what some of the social implications that they have, and some good, some bad, and reflect a little bit on the impact of technology on our lives and on society, and maybe, time permitting, touch up very briefly on a couple of other new things that are surfacing, like electrical vehicles or something along those lines. So that's about it. I hope to see you in the fall. Thank you.